A story told by a father my name might not matter much, because this story could belong to any father or any man who one day discovered that love is a silent homecoming. But if you still want to know, my name is Daniel, and today I've decided to share something I've held on to for years. The journey of a father who tried to get it right, even when he didn't exactly know how. It all started long before I understood what being a father was, long before I even knew who I was. I grew up in a modest home where my father spoke little and worked hard. He'd leave before the sun came up and return when it was too late for long conversations or deep questions. Still, there was something in his silence that I only came to understand decades later. He was always there, even when he seemed too distant to reach. But this story isn't about my father. It's about me, trying to figure out how to break certain cycles, how to open windows where there were once only locked doors, how to give my son what I never received, not for lack of love, but for lack of tools. My son's name is Michael, and from the day I first held him in my arms, I felt something inside me rearrange, as if all my fears had been invited to leave, and all my fragilities had decided to find a voice. Because that's what a child does. They rebuild you from the inside, without asking for permission. Before Michael was born, I had many plans, and most of them were about how I didn't want to be. I didn't want to repeat the hard silence I knew. I didn't want to parent with fear. I didn't want to use the weight of authority as an argument. But plans are fragile in the face of real life. I remember the first night he cried nonstop. I paced the house like an anxious ghost, trying to rock him, say anything to calm this tiny being I barely knew. My wife was sleeping, exhausted, and I, completely insecure, was trying to figure out how to be useful. It was in those early morning hours that I realized nobody is born a father. You become one. I remember looking at him, so small, his face red from crying, and saying, "Son, I don't know what I'm doing, but I promise I'll learn." And that's where it all began. The years passed with almost violent speed. They say childhood doesn't last long, and I discovered that too late. Every photograph, every lopsided drawing on the refrigerator, every bike fall seemed to carry a silent reminder. You won't have this forever. Michael had an easy smile and a curious gaze. He asked too many questions, and almost all of them caught me off guard. "Dad, where do people go when we can't see them anymore? Dad, why do things change? Dad, when does missing someone stop hurting?" I tried to answer as best I could, but some questions were too big even for me. I found it strange to admit, but life has this habit of putting on a child's face riddles that not even the most experienced adult can decipher. I don't remember the last time I held Michael in my arms, but I remember the first time he let go of my hand. We were crossing the street, and he, determined to show he was too big now, pulled his hand away and ran to the other side by himself. It was a simple gesture, but I felt it like a fall. Because growing up is just that, a silent process where, day after day, our children leave us a little. The first night, he slept over at a friend's house. The first game where I wasn't in the stands. The first problem, he kept to himself. The first time he said "I'm fine" when he clearly wasn't. It's strange how children drift away slowly, almost imperceptibly, until one day you realize they don't come to you with the same urgency anymore. And that's not their fault. It's just life. Michael hit adolescence like someone walking through a storm, fast, loud, and full of lightning. I tried to stay close, but like every father, I often found myself stuck in the dilemma of when to speak and when to just be there. The fights started over small things, the mess in his room, his video game time, school. But deep down, I understood what was happening. He was trying to figure out who he was, and in that process, everyone pushes the world away. Doors started closing more than before. Maybe I took too long to realize it wasn't rebellion, but a silent request for space. One night, after a silly argument, he looked at me with tear-filled eyes and said, "Dad, sometimes it feels like you don't trust me." That hit way too deep. And it was there that I understood that trust isn't a place you arrive at, it's a path you build every single day. Michael turned 18 and decided he wanted to go to college in another state. I knew that day would come, but nothing prepares you for the feeling of looking into an empty room the next day. I helped him load his suitcases, pack his books, organize his documents. He was excited, anxious, with that mix of fear and courage only the young have. As for me, well, I tried to hide my trembling hands as I hugged him. At the university gates, before I said goodbye, he told me, "Dad, I learned everything from you, even when you thought you were getting it wrong. and I held myself together as best I could. On the drive back home, I realized something I had never understood with such clarity. Being a father is preparing your child to leave and preparing yourself to stay. The months that followed were strange. The house felt too big, too quiet, too organized. There were days I'd go into his room just to remember how it smelled. Other days I'd catch myself wishing I could hear a door slam, a last-minute request, a silly argument about curfews. Longing does that tit turns what was once irritating into precious memories. My wife said I needed to keep busy. I tried. I started walking again, reading, cooking, but nothing filled the exact space where the routines with my son used to be. Till one day, going through some old boxes, I found something, a recording of my voice, from years ago reading him a bedtime story. God, I had forgotten that version of me. The version that tried to speak softer, be sweeter, be more present. The version that promised to be better than my father had been. And there, listening to my own voice from years past, I cried. I cried for the child he had been. I cried for the father I had tried to be. I cried from the certainty that time runs faster than anyone can keep up with. Life has a strange sense of humor. Just when I thought I'd never adapt to the distance, Michael started coming back, not physically, but in new ways. He'd call to ask for advice. He'd send pictures of a dinner he'd tried to cook. He'd talk about friends, fears, frustrations. And little by little, the relationship that was once father and child transformed into something more balanced, almost like two lives walking side by side. Till one day, without warning, he showed up at home with a backpack and said, "Dad, can I stay a few days? I miss this place." I wanted to respond with maturity. But the truth is, I just hugged him way too tight, as if I were reclaiming lost years. And in that hug, I understood that when a child returns, they never come back the same. They come back bigger. And in some way, that makes you grow too. One ordinary night, we were sitting in the backyard talking about life. The moon was full, lighting up the wooden table that was older than I could count. He was drinking soda, I was drinking coffee. And without realizing it, we slipped into one of those conversations that become a turning point in life. "Dad, I was always afraid of disappointing you." "Why, son?" "Because you were always so strong. And I never felt that strong." I took a deep breath. The answer I gave was almost automatic, but true. "Michael, I only seemed strong because I had to be. But if you knew how many times your love saved me, you'd understand that you were the one who gave me strength." He looked down, emotional. And I knew in that instant that the most beautiful phase of our relationship was just beginning. Sometimes I think about the father I wanted to be when Michael was little. Not the patient, wise, secure, fun father. The TV commercial dad. But looking back now, I see I was only human. And maybe that was enough. Fatherhood taught me more about fragility than about power. More about apologizing than about being right. More about trying again than about always getting it right. Michael grew up, became a man, and in some way he still carries in his eyes that little boy who held my hand to cross the street. And me, I became a father who's still learning, because being a father doesn't end when a child grows up. It just changes form. On his last birthday, I wrote a letter. I didn't give it to him, it's still tucked away. Maybe one day I will. Or maybe I never will. But I wrote, "Son, one day you'll discover that a father's love isn't a straight path, but a road full of curves, fears, and attempts." Still, I never stopped walking. Not for a second, and that's the truth. Being a father isn't about knowing everything. It's about being willing to learn everything all over again, every single day. Today, Michael has his own life, his choices, his responsibilities, and I've learned to be close without intruding, to advise without controlling, to love without smothering. And every now and then, when we're talking, he looks at me in a way I recognize, the same way I looked at my father when I finally understood everything he had tried to do. Life is a beautiful cycle, if you know how to see it. And I see it. If you've made it this far, maybe you're trying to understand something about fatherhood, about love, about time, about losses that aren't losses, but transformations. So let me tell you the only thing I truly learned. Our children are not ours. They only pass through us. The greatest gift is watching them move forward. Today, when I think about everything I lived with Michael, I realize this story isn't about distance or fear or mistakes. It's about permanence. It's about being there. even when they don't need you anymore, even when the house falls silent, even when we grow too big to fit in the same hugs. The voice I carry today, the one speaking to you, is the sum of all this. The voice of a man who tried, failed, succeeded, persisted, and loved. The voice of a father, a voice that never runs out. And if life gave me the chance to start over, I'd do it all again exactly the same way. So every mistake, every silence, every tear, and every hug brought me to the man I am today. And that, my friend, that is what I leave for my son. If you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel and receive more videos like this. Thank you very much.